Okay, me and Liz decided to take turns reading books, and today we chose Marked, a House of Night novel, which I really like this novel. Liz hasn't read it yet, but I have, so, yeah. So, I'm just going to read the poem at the beginning of the thing before the book actually starts. It says, "From Hesiod's poem to Nyx, the Greek personification of night. There also stands the gloomy house of night, ghastly clouds shroud it in its darkness. Before it Atlas stands erect, and on his head, an unwavering arms firmly support the broad sky, where night and day cross a bronze threshold, and then come close and greet each other." Chapter 1. Just when I thought my day couldn't get any worse, I saw the dead guy standing next to my locker. Kayla was talking non-stop in her usual K-babble, and she didn't even notice him, at first. Actually, now that I think about it, no one else noticed him until he spoke, which is, tragically, more evidence of my freakish inability to fit in. No, but Zoe, I swear to God, Heath didn't get that drunk after the game. You really shouldn't be so hard on him. Yeah, I said absently, sure. Then I coughed. Again. I felt like crap. I must be coming down with what Mr. Wise, my more than slightly insane AP biology teacher, called the teenage plague. If I died, would it get me out of my geometry test tomorrow? One could only hope. Zoe, please, are you even listening? I think he only had like 4, I don't know, maybe 6 beers, and maybe like 3 shots. But that's totally beside the point. He probably wouldn't even had hardly any if your stupid parents hadn't made you go home right after the game. We shared a long-suffering look, in total agreement about the latest injustice committed against me by my mom and my step-loser she'd married 3 really long years ago. Then, after barely half a second break, Kay was back with the babble. Unfortunately back. Plus, he was celebrating. I mean, we beat Union. Kay shook my shoulder and put her face close to mine. Hello, my almost boyfriend, I corrected her, trying my best not to cough on her. Whatever. Heath is our quarterback, so of course he's going to celebrate. It's been like a million years since Broken Arrow beat Union. 16. I'm crappy at math, but Kay's math impairment makes me look like a genius. Again, whatever. The point is, he was happy. You should give the boy a break. The point is that he was wasted for like the 5th time this week. I'm sorry, but I don't want to go out with a guy whose main focus in life has changed from trying to play college football to trying to chug a 6-pack without puking. Not to mention the fact that he's going to get fat from all that beer. I had to pause to cough. I was feeling a little dizzy, and forced myself to take slow, deep breaths when the coughing fit was over. Not that K-Ball noticed. Ew, he's fat? Not a visual I want. I managed to ignore another urge to cough, and kissing him is like sucking on alcohol-soaked feet. Kay scrunched up her nose. Okay, sick. Too bad he's so hot. I rolled my eyes, not bothering to try to hide my annoyance at her typical shallowness. You're so grumpy when you're sick. Anyway, you have no idea how lost puppy-like Keith looked after you ignored him at lunch. He couldn't even... Then I saw him. The dead guy. Okay, I realized pretty quick that he wasn't technically dead. He was undead. Or unhuman. Whatever. Scientists said one thing, people said another. But the end result was the same. There was no mistaking what he was. And even if I hadn't felt the power and darkness that radiated from him, there was no freaking way I could miss his mark. The sapphire blue crescent on his forehead, and the additional tattooing of entwining knotwork that framed his equally blue eyes. He was a vampire. And worse, he was a tracker. Well, crap. He was standing by my locker. Zoe, you're so not listening to me. Then the vampire spoke, and his similar words slicked across the space between us, dangerous and seductive, like blood mixed with melted chocolate. Zoe Montgomery, night has chosen thee. Thy death will be thy birth. Night calls to thee. Hearken to her sweet voice. Your destiny awaits you at the house of night. He lifted one long white finger and pointed at me. As my forehead exploded in pain, Kayla opened her mouth and screamed. When the bright splotches finally cleared from my eyes, I looked at the suitcase colorless place staring down at me. As usual, I said the first ridiculous thing that came to mind. Kay, your eyes are popping out of your head like a fish. He marked you. Oh, Zoe, you had the outline of that thing on your forehead. Then she pressed her shaking hand against her white lips. unsuccessfully trying to hold back a sob. I sat up and coughed. I had a killer headache, and I rubbed at the spot right between my eyebrows. It stung as if a wasp had bit my cheek and radiated pain down my eyes, all the way across my cheekbones. I felt like I might puke. Zoe? Kay was really crying now, and had to speak between what hiccups us. Oh my God. That guy was a tracker. A vampire tracker. Kay, I blinked hard, trying to clear the pain from my head. Stop crying. You know I hate it when you cry. I reached out in an attempt to comfort and pat her shoulders. She automatically cringed and moved away from me. I couldn't believe it. She actually cringed, like she was afraid of me. She must have seen the hurt in my eyes because she instantly started a string of breathless K babble. Oh God, Zoe, what are you gonna do? You can't go to that place. You can't be one of those things. This can't be happening. Who am I supposed to go to all the football games with? I noticed that all during her tirade, she didn't want to move any closer to me. I clamped down on the sick hurt feeling inside that threatened to make me burst into tears. My eyes dried instantly. I was good at hiding tears. I should be. I had 3 years to get good at it. It's okay. I'll figure this out. It's probably some bizarre mistake, I lied. I wasn't really talking. I was just making words come out of my mouth. Still grimacing at the pain in my head, I stood up. Looking around, I felt a small measure of relief that Kay and I were the only ones in the math hall. And then I had to choke back what I knew was hysterical laughter. Had I not been totally psycho about the geometry test from hell scheduled tomorrow, and had run back to my locker to get my book so I could attempt to obsessively and pointlessly study tonight, the tracker would have found me standing outside in front of school with the majority of 1,300 kids who went to Broken Arrow South Intermediate High School, waiting for what my stupid Barbie clone sister liked to smugly call the big yellow limos. I have a car, but standing around with the less fortunate who have to ride the buses is a time-honored tradition, not to mention an excellent way to check out who's hitting on who. And it was. There was only one other kid in the math hall, a tall, thin dork with messed up teeth, which I could, unfortunately, see too much of because he was sitting there with his mouth flapping open, staring at me like I'd just given birth to a litter of flying pigs. I coughed again, this time a really wet, disgusting cough. The dork made a squeaky little sound and scuttled down the hall to Mrs. Day's room, clutching a flat board to his bony chest. Guess the chess club has changed its meeting time to Mondays after school. Do vampires play chess? Were there vampire dorks? How about Barbie-like cheerleaders? Did any vampires play in the band? Were there vampire emos with the guys wearing girls' pants weirdos-ness and those awful bangs that covered half their faces? Or were there all those freaky goth kids who didn't like to bathe much? Was I going to turn into a goth kid? Or worse, an emo? I didn't particularly like wearing black, at least not exclusively, and I wasn't feeling a sudden and unfortunate aversion to soap and water, nor did I have an excessive desire to change my hairstyle and wear too much eyeliner. All this swirled around my mind, while I felt another little hysterical buzzer of laughter try to escape my throat, and was almost thankful when it came out as a cough instead. Zoe, are you okay? Kayla's voice sounded too high, like someone was pinching her, and she'd taken another step away from me. I sighed and felt my first sliver of anger. It wasn't like I asked for this. Kay and I had been best friends since 3rd grade, and now she was looking at me like I turned into a monster. Kayla, it's just me. The same me I was 2 seconds ago, and 2 hours ago, and 2 days ago. I made a frustrated gesture toward my throbbing head. This doesn't change who I am. Kay's eyes teared up again, but thankfully her cell phone started just singing Madonna's Material Girl. Automatically, she glanced at the caller ID. I could tell by her rabbit-in-the-headlights expression that it was her boyfriend Jared. Go on, I said in a flat, tired voice. Ride home with him. Her look of relief was like a slap in my face. Call me later, she threw over her shoulder as she did a hasty retreat over the side door. I watched her rush across the east lawn to the parking lot. I could see that she had her cell phone smashed to her ear and was talking in animated little bursts of Gary. I'm sure she was already telling him I was turning into a monster. The problem, of course, was that turning into a monster was the brighter of my 2 choices. Choice number 1. I turn into a vampire, which equals a monster in just about any human mind. Choice number 2. My body rejects the change, and I die. Forever. So the good news is that I wouldn't have to take the geometry test tomorrow. The bad news was that I have to move into the House of Night, a private boarding school in Tulsa's Midtown, known by all my friends as the vampire finishing school, where I would spend the next 4 years going through bizarre and unknowable physical changes, as well as a total and permanent life shake-up. And that's only if the whole process didn't kill me. Great. I didn't want to do either. I just wanted to attempt to be normal, despite the burden of my mega conservative parents, my troll-like younger brother, and my oh-so-perfect older sister. I wanted to pass geometry. I wanted to keep my grades up so that I could get accepted into the veterinary college at OSU and get out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. But most of all, I wanted to fit in, at least at school. Home had become hopeless, so all I was left with were my friends, and my life was my family. Now that was being taken away from me too. I rubbed my forehead and then messed with my hair until it semi-covered my eyes. And with any luck, the mark that I had appeared above them. Keeping my head ducked down, like I was fascinated with the goo that had somehow formed in my purse, I hurried toward the door and led to the student parking lot. But I stopped short of going outside. Through the side-by-side windows and the institutional-looking doors, I could see heaps. Girls flocked around him, posing and flipping their hair, while guys read reviews to big pickup trucks and tried, but mostly failed, to look cool. Doesn't it figure that I would choose that to be attracted to? No, to be fair to myself, I should remember that he used to be incredibly sweet, and even now he had his moments. Mostly when he bothered me sober. High-pitched girls giggle-flitted to me from the parking lot. Great. Kathy Richard, the biggest hoe in school, was pretending to smack Heath. Even from where I was standing, it was obvious she thought hitting him was some kind of mating ritual. As usual, clueless Heath was just sitting there grinning. Well, hell, my day just wasn't going to get any better. And there sat my robin egg blue 1966 VW Bug, right in the middle of them. No, I couldn't go out there. I couldn't walk in the middle of all of them with this thing on my forehead. I'd never be able to part of them again. I hardly knew too well what they'd do. I remember the last kid attracted had chosen SIHS. It happened in the beginning of the school year last year. The tracker had come before school started and had targeted the kid as he was walking to his first hour. I didn't see the tracker, but I did see the kid afterward, just for a second, after he dropped his books and ran out of the building, his new mark glowing on his pale forehead and tears washing down his two white cheeks. I never forgot how crowded the halls had been that morning, and how everyone had backed away from him like he had a plague, as he rushed to escape out the front doors of the school. I had been one of those kids who had backed out of his way and stared, even though I felt really sorry for him. I just hadn't wanted to be labeled as that one freaky girl who's friends with those freaks. Sort of ironic now, isn't it? Instead of going to my car, I headed for the nearest restroom, which was, thankfully, empty. There were 3 stalls. Yes, I double-checked each for feet. On one wall were the 2 sinks, over which hung 2 medium-sized mirrors. Across from the sinks of the opposite wall was covered with a huge mirror that had a ledge below it for holding brushes and makeup and whatnot. I put my purse and my geometry book on the ledge, took a deep breath, and in one motion lifted my head and brushed back my hair. It was like staring at the face of a familiar stranger. You know, that person you see in the crowd and swear you know, but you really don't. Now she was me, the familiar stranger. She had my eyes. They were the same hazel color that could never decide whether it wanted to be green or brown. But the eyes had never been that big and round. Or had they? She had my hair, long and straight and almost as dark as my grandma's had been before hers began to turn silver. The stranger had high cheekbones, long, strong nose, and a wide mouth. More features from my grandma and her Cherokee ancestors. But my face had never been that pale. I'd always been olivish, much darker skinned than anyone else in my family. But maybe it wasn't the skin. My skin was certainly so white. Maybe it just looked pale in comparison to the dark blue outline of the crescent moon that was perfectly positioned in the middle of my forehead. Or maybe it was the horrid fluorescent lighting. I hoped it was the lighting. I stared at the exotic-looking tattoos. Mixed with my strong Cherokee pictures, it seemed to brand me with the mark of wildness, as I belonged to ancient times when the world was bigger, more barbaric. From the day on, my life would never be the same, and for a moment, just an instant, I forgot about the horror of not belonging, and felt a shocking burst of pleasure, while deep inside me, the blood of my grandmother's people rejoiced.